Welcome everybody to the Trend Talk. We are your hosts, Maravina Jaimes and Bel Hernandez. Today we're going to shake things up a little bit. We have invited Momo Rodriguez, a smart, wacky stand-up, and well, take a look at his work.
So, Momo, you are hilarious. You've been at this for a long time. It's obvious that you just relish being a Latino. But in the early days, how did you get started in the comedy world, and who were your idols?
I actually broke into comedy. Literally, I broke in. I was George Lopez, basically. When I graduated high school, I was told by a very, very crazy casting director that I was too ugly and too fat to be considered to be like even trying. She was really honest, and I still know her name. She still works at CBS, by the way. And I said, you know what?
Who is she? Who is she?
Yeah, let's boycott her.
Anyways, I don't know. She might hook it up later on. But then I was like, you know what? It's cool. And then one day, being like the kid I was in the hood, we were experienced a very crazy drive-by, and it was so crazy that they shut up all of our house. Oh. And I remember walking into my kitchen and seeing my mom in tears, just crying, and my dad cry. I never seen my parents cry. So it was crazy. And I went over and I said, what can I do to stop this? And I saw that the refrigerator was shot. So I ran to the refrigerator and I hugged it like it was the person saying, no, why not me? And my mom starts laughing. And at that moment, I realized I took a very horrible situation and I brought light to it. And that's when it triggered something in me like, okay, this can be a tool. This can be some kind of a resource, not only to help me, but to help people around me. And at that time, high school, going through my situation, growing up, I got a Richard Pryor record that I got in the garage. So my mom bought. She bought one of these, what do you call those big old things with consoles?
The record player, the vitrola.
The vitrola, all right. The vitrola, right? Because it wasn't a record player, it was a vitrola. I remember, esa vitrola. And I remember they had all these records already in them. And one of them was a George Carlin album, and it was a Richard Pryor Carlin. And also they had a tape that said solo para adultos, only for adults. So I thought, this is how dumb I was. I thought it was like sex sounds. and I wanted to, I was like 15, 16. I was like, I'm gonna jack that, and I want to hear those sex sounds, So I remember putting it into the tape player, and it was Polo Polo, the comedian. Oh. And it was my first Spanish stand-up. So I got Spanish stand-up. I got the Cantinflas movies, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, and then in my renaissance as a creator writer, I was introduced to George Lopez. And for me, that was like, wow, okay, we can do it too. And that was my main goal, to be like George Lopez, to be like Paul Rodriguez, to be like Mencia, all the influences at that time. And I wanted to be so much like them. And that's when I said, how am I going to do this? I broke into it. I got arrested at Warner Brothers.
Oh, why?
When I first found out who George Lopez was, and I saw that he got his own TV show, I snuck onto the set, and I broke into Warner Brothers. And the reason that I was able to do that is because I found out that according to Jim, that one show would tape the same day. So I signed up to be a seat filler for according to Jim, and I stayed inside the restroom for like 3 hours when it was time to go to the George Lopez soundstage. And I remember his soundstage was next to the ER one. So I just looked for people dressed in scrubs, and I just went in there, and they're like, who are you? I'm like, I'm George's cousin. I was in the truck. I just came back. And they let me in, and then I guess it was one of his PAs was like, you're not George's cousin, man. Who are you? And then security came, and man, they zip tied me, and I was like, just the whole time.
I hope you're writing a book.
Yes, really.
We want to hear all these stories.
So did George come and rescue you, or like?
Yeah, he came. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, man, I wanted to meet you. I'm a fan of yours. I wanted to just meet my hero. And he goes, well, let me see what you got. And I think I performed in front of the studio audience. And then
he put you to perform in front of the studio audience?
And I remember it was, who was there? It was Sandra Bullock was there because they were celebrating their 180th episode. And Adam West was there. He was doing a guest spot on that show. It was, for me, and Andy Garcia was directing. And I remember when I went on stage, I went blank. I didn't know what to talk about. So I did like 10 minutes talking about Andy Garcia, making fun of Andy Garcia. This day, I don't think Andy Garcia likes me. But and I always see him because he's good friends with George Lopez. But I remember that day, I was like, you got to make it or break it. Like, this is your moment. Prove to them why you need to be here. And after that, George is like, hey, go to the Ice House, tell them I sent you. And that started my career, like performing at the Ice House. Maybe 8 years later, I didn't hear from George. He never talked to me. And then this guy, he said, hey, there's going to be a tournament for Latinos that Tony Plana's East LA, Tony Plana's LA Classic Theater.
Yes.
Huh.
He was having a golf tournament. So I snuck into that one. And my friend wrote me into the program to perform before Carlos Mencia. So I remember I went on stage and they were like, who's this guy? And I remember Tony had to announce me. Tony didn't know who the hell I was. But Tony, the actor that he is, the beautiful, amazing actor that he is, bullshitted my intro. And I remember this guy, you know what? I'm going to have Eddie introduce him. So Eddie almost goes on stage. Eddie doesn't know who the fuck I am either. He doesn't know anything about me. But Eddie almost is the best, the amazing bullshit in the world. So he'll lower his tone. This guy, and let me just say, this is why we do this. This is why this is important. This guy, well, I'm going to let you decide and find out who he is. I mean, I go up there, I do the best. I'm like, look, all your heroes are here, knock it out of the park. I go up there, and then I just start going off. I think I did 5 minutes on just Isai Morales that was standing right next to me. Isai's always fun to bag on.
Who were we talking about earlier that you didn't even make it to a cholo, but you can play a good cholo?
Oh, yeah, I could play. They kicked me out of the gang where I grew up because, I don't know, back in the 90s, before the 13th, and the 13th symbolizes the 13 members of the Mexican mafia. So whenever a gang has a 13 on it, it means they're in a treaty not to kill each other and to be to be in peace. So before that, all the gangs were at war. So we had to be part of the gang in the neighborhood. And they would say, if you're not in the gang, your house is not protected. So you have to join us. And I'm like 15 years old, and I'm like, well, I guess I got to be in the gang. So I went to the gang meeting, and they're like, the gang guy, the main guy was like, listen, you guys are young, so your job is to find ways for us to make money, and you have to pull the money in. So figure out what you can do to make money for the gang. So I took it as a good project. I went home, did some like storyboards, did something. I almost showed up with a PowerPoint. I was like, listen, I got an idea. And I remember the cholo goes like, what's your guys' idea? And I was like, I raised my hand. I'm like, I think I know what we can make money with. I think all of our moms cook. And according to the numbers they made last year at the church, if we all do a huge bake sale, this can be great for the neighborhood. The cholo looks at me, and my friends will still give me shit for this because they were there. They were like, I remember when Momo pitched the bake sale, they told me, he's like, you know what, Momo, hey, just go home, man. And I was pissed. I went home mad. I told my mom, she's like, what's wrong with you? They won't let me join the gang. And my mom's like, what? She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, listen, you want this house to be safe or not? I'm doing my part. What are you doing? And I remember she was like, you go tell them that you're not going to be part of their gang. I went back. I'm like, hey, guys. So my mom says it can't be in the gang. And they're like, you know what, Momo, you're fine, bro. Just go home. But, hey, years later, what happened recently? They have Homeboy Industries, right?
Right.
And what do? They bake bread.
That's right. You were before your time.
Oh, I'm serious.
You should be the spokesperson for
Oh my,
homeless.
you need a show, Momo. You need a show.
And
It's
speaking
hilarious.
about you needing a show, I want to ask you, I mean, at this time, you know, you can't go to perform at a comedy club. I mean,
No.
what in the world are you doing to continue to share your comedy?
Well, thank God, and I really do thank God, because I always told a lot of the stand-ups that I started up with, write, learn to write, go take classes, go take acting classes. I went in debt taking acting classes, and they're like, I don't need to act. I'm a comedian. I know how to act. No, two different worlds.
Yeah.
I have respect for the actor as much as I feel the actor should have respect for the comedian. It's two different worlds, and I taught myself, you know, to really practice and really submerge myself in people's art. So I learned to write. I was a student of writing. So this whole time I've been writing for a lot of other people, and that's been my source of income. I've been producing for a lot of people. I'm a video editor. I'm an editor. I'm social media expert. I make sure I was prepping for a time where we weren't performing. And let me tell you, when you're a Latino in comedy, and I hate to play the race card, we don't get that much headlining spots in the clubs.
Right.
So what's the difference between this? Not much. Our income as comedians does not come from the clubs. It comes from what we do outside the clubs.
Right.
So honestly, that's the only way I'm surviving. And of course, I've written so much. We've had some great things happen. I mean, I'm writing a show about my life. I'm writing a show about my relationships. I'm writing a show. There's so much that hasn't been done that can be done. I mean,
Right.
I just found out my wife is half black.
Okay.
You know
wow.
that, huh?
You have more material now.
How long were you dating before this? You got married.
Well,
No.
she found out that because she found out who her biological dad was,
Oh.
and it came out that he was black, and she never knew. So this whole time, you know, I mean, it's different because ever since we found out she was black, my mom stopped asking for grandkids. It's weird. I don't know if that's a
Momo.
I don't know if that's a
Hi,
Mexican
Momo.
thing. It's
Well,
weird.
listen, that's why we wanted to have you on the Trend Talk, because we needed to touch base with you. By the way, we just want to mention real fast, you recently did something that was amazing and went viral. You hired a mariachi.
Oh, for George
Or
Lopez,
George,
yeah.
you did the whole thing, the whole birthday celebration, right? You told everybody about it, and you
Yeah,
hired mariachi. Go ahead.
It was beautiful. And here's the cool thing. I was there organizing early. It was a hot day, by the way, to see mariachis in a 3-piece suit. Man, and then I meant to make sure you guys wear masks. And I even provided masks that said Chingon on them. And the poor trumpet player had to keep pumping. We had to put a hole in the trumpet player's mask because we didn't think that went through. And then, but before I got there, I remember when I did a drive, and I was like, I see somebody in front of George's house. Now I'm a friend of George, and when I see people in front of his house, I'm like, okay, who's this dude? And I saw this guy setting things up, and I'm like, what is he gonna do? It was the most beautiful scene of brotherhood I ever seen. It was the actor Anthony Anderson from Blackish.
Yeah.
He was setting up a boombox. He was setting up all these presents. He had a mask and gloves, and he sang "Happy Birthday" in Spanish for George. And I'm just seeing these two guys, these entertainers, man, and the love they have for each other still from meeting each other from years.
We're gonna have to hit you up for a George Lopez hat and shirt for our Father's Day thing that we're gonna do later.
Oh.
But we'll talk to you about that.
We'll raffle
Well-
a bunch of stuff like that if you guys want.
Yes,
Okay,
for
fabulous.
Father's Day. Awesome.
Yes. Well, I have to say, Momo, thank you so much for joining us. We really wanted to have you on the Trend Talk. And everyone else, don't forget to follow Momo Rodriguez and follow us on the Trend Talk. And remember,
If it's trending, we're
talking.
talking.